First world problems, right?
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Connect Church, man. I'm happy to see all your faces today. If you're new here, and we want to say an especially special thank you. I don't know how to put that, but here we go. Thank you for being here. We're glad you're spending your morning with us. You could be anywhere in the world, but you've chose to be here with us, and we're happy that you're here. So thank you for taking time out of your morning. If you haven't been with us recently, we're on a sermon series called #Struggles, right? We've been talking about social media and technology, and we've been talking about how what it means to follow Jesus in a selfie-centered world. So over the past couple of weeks, maybe we've gone over some things like contentment, authenticity. I'm blanking the other one, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. Anybody remember? Relationships. I heard it. There it is. Yes. Someone's listening. And so we've gone over a few topics directly relating to social media and how it's affected our lives. And it's funny, this is a funny thing. In all the time that I've been a pastor here, and actually we're going on 4 years. Next week is our 4-year birthday at Connect Church, so that's exciting. But in the last 4 years, man, I'm not sure I've ever preached on this topic before, but it's funny that it's a theme here this morning. And next week, we're going to talk about what it means to rest. We're going to talk about what it means to rest in a day filled with constantly going, moving, on the go all the time, right? Constantly at work, at games, at this, at that, constantly on our phones, right? In a day that's non-stop, continually moving forward every second, we're going to learn how to rest again, right? We're going to rediscover what it means to rest and what that looks like. And how many know that's really important to God, right? And something we don't talk about a lot in the church, but how many know during creation, for 6 days God created, and on the seventh He rested. This infinite being that doesn't need rest, this infinite being that is perfect in every way possible, He chose to rest on the seventh day, and that was an example to you and I of what we need to do also, because we are not built to go nonstop. So we're going to talk about what it means to rest next week. If you need some rest in your life, I recommend you be here. If you know somebody that needs some rest in their lives, bring them along, right? So for today, we're going to talk about another topic, and we're going to talk about compassion. We're going to talk about compassion this morning. And we're going to talk about that because that's another topic that's really important to Jesus, right? That is a really, really big topic, and it's directly related to how we love each other. And so it's an important topic to talk about. And we're going to talk about how social media and technology have in some ways sort of propelled compassion in ways like we've never seen before, right? Through the internet, we have things like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. We've had things like, on your birthday every single year, Facebook sends you something and says, hey, which nonprofit would you like to get everybody else but you to give to, right? like that, right? But so there's all these ways where like we can propel compassion forward, but there's also many ways where social media has truly just hindered compassion in our lives and really held us back in some areas. So we're going to check that out this morning. We're going to jump right in. Now, if you're taking notes, you can pull those out. We're going to get ready. And let's just kick it off. Here we go. So the University of Michigan did a comprehensive study of 14,000 college students from between the years 1979 to 2009, right? 14,000 students in the University of Michigan from 1979 to 2009, and what they found in this comprehensive study is that there has been actually a drastic decline in empathy. In this country, we've had a drastic decline in empathy from 1979 to 2009. And in fact, if you're taking notes, the results that they found out is we actually care about one another 40% less than we did in 1980. And nobody's fazed by that. That's a scary thing, right? Think about that for a second. 40% since 1980, we literally almost care about each other half as much as we used to. Half. Think about that. 40%, that's almost half. That is a scary number when you're talking about how much people care about each other, right? That's a crazy thing. It's a 40% drop. This is literally a crisis in our culture. This is a problem. This is a huge, huge problem. It's not good, right? So this raises the question, why, though? Why? Like, how did this happen? How did we get here? Why do we care 40% less about one another? Why the sudden shift? Why are we caring less? And there's a ton of different theories, there's a ton of different ideas, people are studying this all over the place, but what experts argue is that the rise of social media is the cause of us caring 40% less for one another. There's a few reasons for that. And so first, if you're taking notes, number one reason is we have to admit that we're a lot more obsessed with ourselves than we've ever been before, right? We're a lot more obsessed with ourselves than our culture has ever been before, right? We live in a different day. And for those of you in the room who are younger and you grew up with selfie in your vocabulary, right? For those of you who grew up and that was just a normal part of your life, all the old people in here would like me to tell you, selfies are not normal, right? To turn a phone on yourself and take a picture of just how good you look, that's not a normal thing for people to do, right? It's really become normal in our society because we're all doing it, right? But this isn't normal, right? 20 years ago, people didn't take those little disposable cameras that you bring to Rite Aid to let them write. They didn't take them, right? Nobody was doing that, right? It's like the vainest thing you could ever do to yourself, right? But so all of a sudden we're more obsessed with ourselves than we've ever been before, right? And it's just become normal. In fact, it's so normal that there are a variety of different selfies that you all will understand exactly what they look like if I just tell you the hashtag that's associated with it. Right? You ready for this? Hashtag, I just woke up like this. Right? You all know what happened, right? It's some pretty girl. She got out of bed, did her makeup and her hair, and got back in bed just to take the picture and write, I just woke up like this, right? 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 Or hashtag, check out these games, right? You all know all right, we have so many, all right, never mind, I'm not touching that. Check out these games. You got the guy at the gym in the mirror, right? Flexing in the mirror, taking selfies on himself, right? Or hashtag, living my best life, right? You can just picture it. Somebody's on a beach, their feet are up, they're reading a book, they're hanging out, right? Or they're on a boat, they're doing something fun, their best life, right? Haircut selfie, right? Bestie selfie, right? You've seen them all, and they're like, hey guys, that's my best friend, right? But you can see it, all right? All you gotta do is tell you the hashtag, and you can see it in your mind because you've seen it 1,000 times before, right? This is normal. This is normal for us. We are absolutely obsessed with ourselves. And studies show that about 80% of how you interact when you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, about 80% of what a person does while they're interacting on social media directly relates to themselves. Right? It directly relates to themselves. In other words, when I'm going on social media to see what I'm going on to see what I'm interested in, right? I'm going to check out what I'm interested in, and I'm going to see, did you like my picture? Did you like my video? Did you comment on my video or my picture or my status or whatever? 80% of what we do when we get on is directly relating to ourselves. When I get on Facebook or Instagram or any of those, it's all about me, right? It's all about me. It's directly relating to me, and so when we see something that's related to us, what happens is all of a sudden our bodies release this chemical, right, called dopamine. It's exactly like it sounds. It's free dope, right? Like God created dope. No, but there's this little thing that's released when we see something that's directly related to us, and it's telling us, ooh, I like that. This is a good feeling, right? This is good, this is good, this is good. And so what we see is we see the comment, the interaction, the like, the whatever it is that's relating to us, and our bodies are telling us, you need more of that. You need more of that. You need more of that. You need more of that, right? So we keep going after that. Keep getting more, right? I like that. So our body actually begins to train us to be self-centered. Our bodies, through social media, start releasing dopamine, all about ourselves, to train us to care more only about ourselves. Isn't that amazing? What a crazy concept. So social media causes us to care less about other people while caring more about ourselves, right? It trains us to do that, to go deeper into that. And the second reason social media and technology can cause us to care less, number 2, is because we have overwhelming amounts of exposure to suffering, and it desensitizes us. I said a couple weeks ago, we get on Facebook and we see all this drama in the whole world, and we see stuff happening in New York and Colorado and California, Canada, Mexico, right? We see all these, every single day there's drama flooding our streams, there's people hurting, there's people suffering, there's things happening, and we see it all. And you as a person was not designed by God to know what's happening halfway across the world, right? When God created us, He didn't create the internet with us so that we can keep talking. Now, the internet's not a bad thing. Listen to me. I'm not putting the internet down, right? But the idea is in creation, you were created in a garden with other people around you, right? But all of a sudden we live in this day where we're connected as close as that garden, as they were in that garden, with everyone on the planet. So we get all the news in a moment, right? Everything that's happening. We were not created to know everything all the time. So we have this overwhelming amount of exposure that is desensitizing us. And so what happens is oftentimes when we see pain, the more we see pain, the harder it is to continue to care, right? The more often we see pain, the harder it is to continue to care. I remember years ago, you guys all know this thing, I would watch these commercials. This commercial would come on TV of this little boy, probably in Africa or Haiti or different parts of the world. And you can see every rib in this little boy's body, right? There's flies flying around his head. He's malnourished. He's going to die within weeks, a month. Like, nothing's left, right? Now, I remember I used to see this commercial that would come on and it would literally bring me to tears, right? It would just choke me up. I'd spend the day trying to forget about it. Like, it would mess my life up, right? It would really mess with me. And today, that same exact commercial can come on the TV, but now I've learned how to tune it out. Now I'm at a different place in life where now I've seen it so much, it doesn't affect me the way it used to affect me, right? I've grown a little bit more numb to that commercial because I've seen it before. I've seen suffering a lot, right? We've all seen suffering a lot. If you're connected to the internet, you've seen it a lot. So I'm a little more numb than I used to be. I'm not nearly as affected as I used to be because I've become desensitized to it, right? We've become desensitized. The other thing experts are saying is that because we see on a timeline, right? Anytime you get on social media, you scroll, right? Whatever it is, you're scrolling. You scroll upward, right? You just keep going. And experts are saying because we see everything on a timeline, we see one post and another post and someone's picture and someone's video and an ad and another post and this, right? And it just keeps going, right? And there's all these different things. And we see everything on a timeline. And what happens is literally scientists are figuring out that our brains don't know how to differentiate from what's good and what's bad because they're all on the same playing field. Right? They're all in the same order, the same way. And so you may be scrolling through your news feed and you see a recipe for mac and cheese, right? Now this video is showing you, right? See this recipe for mac and cheese and followed by another Dallas Cowboys player beats his girlfriend, right? Right? That's the typical, right, Rose? Anyways, keep going. And then you see, right? And then you see a funny cat video, right? Followed by an innocent reporter beheaded in the Middle East somewhere. Followed by followed by an Amazon ad, right? Because you need new bed sheets. And your phone heard you talking about it. I don't know. But you see all these things, right? You said they're in random order. Everything from murder to recipes to just, I don't know, having a bad day, having a good day, look at my new hairdo, right? And your brain doesn't know how to go, this is really bad, this really isn't so bad, right? Your brain doesn't know how to do that. It just goes, they're all the same, right? It just keeps going. You can't really identify. And so your brain can't do it fast enough. And so your brain doesn't know what's more important. So we lose some of that. And so because you see it's equal on your newsfeed, it becomes pretty equal in your mind, right? That's kind of how that works. So we start to care less, right? What a scary thing. And the third way that technology can cause us to care less, number 3, is a lack of personal interaction makes it easier not to care. A lack of personal interaction makes it really easy not to care. For example, if you lose your job and you write on Facebook, I lost my job, what are we going to do? Everybody in this room, we're all going to do the same thing. I'm so sorry to hear that, ... I'm praying for you. Praying hands, right? That's what we do, instantly. We all put that on there, and I hope you all actually pray for them, right? In that moment, if you tell somebody you're going to pray for them, please pray for them, right? Take that second and a half and pray for them. At least do it at some point, right? Right, in that moment. But we see that, we see, I lost my job, and then we get on, we go, I'm so sorry to hear that, praying for you, right? And then you pray for them right away so you don't forget, right? And keep going. But the difference is, if that person was to get you and say, hey, listen, man, I gotta talk, and you go sit down, and he looks at you face to face and says, listen, man, I lost my job. And you can see him crying. You can see him hurting. You can see him going through some sort of anxiety or frustration or depression over this. You can see the desperation in that person's face, right? If you can hear the person say, man, I gotta pull my kids out of sports because I can't afford to keep them in them, right? It changes things. I gotta make sure somehow I'm gonna be able to pay my mortgage because if I don't, they're gonna take my house from me and we're gonna lose everything that we have. All of a sudden, when you're face to face with that person and they explain those things to you face to face instead of just, I lost my job having a bad day, all of a sudden you connect with that person deeper, right? There's something, you want to help that person. You want to walk with that person. You want to help them figure out their situation. You are deeply moved with compassion for that person in a way you wouldn't have been moved if you had just simply seen them write that online and left a comment, right? And where you may have forgotten to pray for them because you just left a comment online, chances are you're not going to forget to pray for the guy who just broke your heart that you sat down with, you found out he lost his job, right? There's a big difference. It's so much easier to disconnect from a distance. It's so much easier to disconnect from a distance. And man, I think we could care in a way that other people don't care if we would just do these things face to face. It's easy to disconnect from a distance. So when we relate to other people based solely on what we see online, we actually end up caring less for one another. If that's the main way you relate to one another, man, I promise you, you're missing something. You're missing a huge part of what relationship looks like. So what's the challenge, right? We got to understand that as Christ followers, that God calls us to so much more. He calls us to so much more than just clicking. He calls us to so much more than just social media, right? Compassion really counts. Compassion really, really counts. And what I want to do as we keep going through here is I want to give you two main thoughts that are kind of going to drive us through this study. And we're going to let the Holy Spirit kind of speak to us in ways that I believe God is going to do some amazing things. But the first thing, if you're taking notes, is that true compassion demands action. True compassion demands action. The Greek word used for compassion, I'm not going to share the word with you because I'm not sure I can even pronounce it properly, but I'm just going to give you the definition. But the Greek word used for compassion here in this text, I love it, and it says, compassion, according to the Greek, it means yearning and feeling deep sympathy, to be moved into action. It's a yearning. It's feeling this deep sympathy that moves you into action, right? Compassion moves you into action. That's the big thing I want you to hear. Compassion moves you into action, right? Compassion is action. There's action with compassion. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it or what orders and combinations I'm going to say them in, but compassion leads to action, right? Yep. And it's powerful, right? It tells us so much. Compassion is not just this emotion you feel when you see someone down and out, or someone in need, somebody, something in need, but compassion is literally an action. And to say you care without acting is actually not caring at all. It's the same thing as not caring at all. To say, I care, I care, I care, I care, I care, I promise you I care, right? But to do nothing at all, to leave it the way it was, to leave the situation alone, to not do anything about it. If it doesn't bring you to any sort of action, then it's the same thing as not caring at all. It's the same thing. So often we see people in crisis, right? And what do? We like their status, right? We click the sad face, right? We do whatever that looks like. Click the bad face, the sad face. We see the bad status, and we comment with the warm feelings, right? Right, warm feelings, right? Said some prayers for you, but we do nothing for the person, right? We never do anything for the person. We kind of sit back, right? And can I tell you, man, caring is not clicking on something. Caring is not clicking, right? Caring is not clicking. It's being involved and making a difference somewhere, right? If you care, it will lead you to action. It's being involved. It's making a difference. It's not liking a post, but it's loving a person, right? Caring is not liking a post, but it's loving a person. It's being involved. It's making a difference. It's being moved from within the depths of your soul to get outside of yourself and help somebody else. That's what caring is. What's amazing to me is as we look at the life of Jesus, every time the word compassion in the Gospels, every time that word pops up, compassion, directly related to Jesus anyways, it's always followed up by a corresponding action. Every single time. Every single time you see Jesus was filled with compassion, you always see a corresponding action that comes after that. Every single time. Anytime in the Gospels when you see Jesus was moved with compassion, it's always there. For example, Mark's Gospel, Mark chapter 1, if you have your Bibles. Mark chapter 1, verses 40 and 41, and I'm just going to go through it, but you can write this down. Mark chapter 1, verses 40 and 41. And it says, a man with leprosy came and knelt in front of Jesus, begging to be healed. He says, if you're willing, Jesus, you can heal me and make me clean, he said. And moved with compassion, therefore he acted. Jesus reached out and touched the man and said, I am willing. Be healed. Or check this out, Matthew 14:14. Matthew 14:14. It says, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had what? Compassion on them. He had compassion on them and healed their sick. Jesus had compassion on them. So what does he do? He healed their sick. He acted. Action followed the compassion. Jesus doesn't say, all right, man, I'll be praying for you. Right? All right, man, I'll put that in my prayer journal. Right? All right, man, I'm going to move on. Right? He doesn't say warm thoughts, well wishes, thinking of you. Right? None of that stuff. Can you not tell people that? As Christians, can we just settle the fact that we're just going to tell people I'm praying for them because that does something, and warm thoughts and well wishes do nothing? We just throw those away, right? Just get rid of those. Anyhow, we're moving on. But it's fun. Seriously, so many Christians are like, man, thinking of you, right? Warm thoughts. That's great, but it doesn't do anything for anybody. That's great. I'm glad you're thinking about them. That's good. It's a nice thing to say to somebody. But I've just never seen warm thoughts actually move the heart of God and push him into action for the person. I don't know. But maybe you have. Well, another one. Let's check out Matthew 20, verse 34. There were some blind men, and they're crying out to Jesus, right? They're wanting to be healed. And guess what? Guess what Jesus does? It says he had compassion, right? Jesus had compassion on them. So what does he do? He touched their eyes. And immediately they received their sight and followed him. He had compassion, so he acted. He felt compassion, so he acted. True compassion always demands action. True compassion always demands action. To say you care, but to not move, to not act, to not do something, is to not care at all. It's to not care at all. And it's an absolute tragedy that we live in a place, in a society, that 40% is the margin that we care about people less by, right? We care about people less, 40% less than we used to. That's a tragedy. I'm going to be honest with you. The truth is, the more I get on social media, the more time I spend on there, the more times I log on there a day, the more I'm on there, the more I tend to obsess with myself. That's a reality. The more time I spend on social media, the more I obsess over social media, and then the more I care about me, and the less I care about other people, right? The more I get on social media, the more I obsess about social media, the more I care about myself, and the less I care about other people. But here's what's interesting. This is what's awesome, right? Call yourself a Christian, check this out, right? This is what's awesome for us. The more I obsess about Jesus, the more I want to know him, right? The more I obsess about Jesus, the more I want to know him, the more I want to serve him, the more I want to get close to him, rely on him, depend on him, right? And this is what's crazy. And the closer I grow to Jesus, the closer I get to him, the more our relationship grows, and the more time we spend together, the less I care about me, right? The more time I spend with Jesus, the less I care about myself. The more time I spend with him, the less I care about me, right? And all of a sudden, man, it's like your life starts to change. And you begin to deny yourself, right? Suddenly, you start to pick up your cross, right? To literally put your flesh to death, right? All the things that the flesh wants, right? Sin. All of a sudden, you start to deny yourself. You pick up your cross, right? You start to die to yourself, and you follow him. And what happens is, as I start to pursue Jesus and become more like him, the less I am like myself, right? The less I want to be me, right? It changes everything, and strangely, the less you will care, and the more you will care about other people. Yes. Right? When you get lost in Jesus, you will stop caring about yourself, and you will start caring a lot more about other people. Yes. Changes everything. So you got to think about that. But here's a real question for you. I want to ask you, and don't shout this out, when was the last time you took a full day to serve somebody? When was the last time you had plans, you wanted to do something, that day was for you, and you canceled it all to help somebody else? When was the last time? When was the last time you took a weekend to serve somebody? I don't know. When was the last time you significantly went out of your way to help somebody financially? More than usual, right? Not just throwing $20 at your kid, but somebody who is genuinely in need of help, right? When was the last time, for some of you, man, it may have been just yesterday, right? It may have been this week, it may have been recently, and that's great, man, praise God, I'm happy to hear that, but for some of us, man, we really got to think about that. We really got to think about that. When was the last time you had compassion and just served somebody wholeheartedly at your own expense, right? When was the last time we did that? If you can't remember, one thing I want to say, man, is that might be a good barometer of where you're at with Jesus, right? Because one thing that's interesting is with Jesus, that was just a normal, regular, everyday thing. Very normal for him, right? And for some of us, we got the whole Jesus thing going on, and we got our own relationship with him, and it's all good, but some of us were missing this side of it, right? We forgot that it's about denying us, right? And giving him glory, right? And that compassion demands action. So the rest of our time here today, I want to bring just a little bit of application for this message, and then we're going to bring this thing to a close. But I want to ask the question, man, what are we going to do about this? Like, how are we going to switch this? How are we going to draw compassion out of our lives? How are we going to do that? What's the next step? So here's the question. What does compassion call us to do? Point A, compassion interrupts. Compassion interrupts. Compassion will interrupt your schedule. It will interrupt your work week. It will interrupt your family time. It will interrupt all the other things you thought you had to do. It will interrupt your grocery shopping, right? When you look at Jesus, you will see time and time and time again when Jesus was interrupted by people's needs. Jesus was doing his own thing. There was something else happening, and he stopped and met needs. And I have 3 different examples of this, and I'm going to let you guys go home and read for yourself. I'm going to go over one real quick. But the first example is Mark 6, right? And this is where Jesus and the disciples, they had been working their tails off doing ministry all day long. They were exhausted, they were burned out, and there's even a point in the text where it says they hadn't even had time to stop and eat, and it's now evening time, right? They hadn't eaten all day because they did ministry all day long, swamped by people who needed them, right? And so Jesus says, all right, man, let's take a break. We're going to go rest. We're going to leave. We're going to go take a rest. We're going to lay our heads down. We're just going to relax for a while. We need to rest. And we've all been there, right? You ever get in that place where you're like, man, I've been going nonstop. I just need to kick up my feet. I need to relax a little. I need to eat something, right? Like, this is me time now. I need some time, right? I'm going to sell my kids to the highest bidder, whatever. Just let me read a book somewhere. Come on. right? Right? I'm joking. Don't do that. But it's a bad idea. But I need a nap. I need a TV show. I need a book. I need something, somewhere. I just need some me time. Well, this is exactly what Jesus is feeling. This is exactly what he's thinking. He's saying this to himself. He's wiped. He's tired. He needs a break. He's done this all day long. All day, right? All day long with the disciples, right? And then all of a sudden, they go to rest, and they are swamped by this massive crowd that comes out of nowhere, right? I just started running, right? I am running to my couch, right? I'm going to sit down somewhere. No, but for real, like, you could have started running, right? Take it easy. I'm sick, cough, cough, right? Like, I got some stuff I need to do. I'll be back in a little while, right? Something, right? BRB, see ya. But it doesn't happen, right? Instead, not Jesus. The Bible says, even in his exhaustion, it says, Jesus was moved with compassion. He's exhausted, he's tired, he's hungry, like he's ready to just stop and give up and relax a little bit, but Jesus was moved with compassion anyways. He's still moved with compassion. He's tired, he's hungry, he's thirsty, he's ready to relax a little bit. It should be about him by now. And yet again, he's moved with compassion. So what does Jesus do? It says he started teaching them. Exhausted. He's been doing this all day long. He's starving, he's hungry, he wants a break, and he starts teaching them. That's what you do when you're moved with compassion. To action. You do something. It's happening again in Luke chapter 8. Jesus is on his way to heal this dying girl who desperately needs him, right? And while he's on the way to do the will of God, what God's asked him to do, God interrupts him with another small mission, right? Another little thing. And there's this other lady who approaches him, who's had this issue for 12 years, right? And all of a sudden Jesus stops and he heals her also, right? He was interrupted from his important God-given task to go do this. And all of a sudden there's this interruption, yet he still takes the time with that interruption, right? He could have said, no, God has something for me. I don't have time. Kept walking, right? Wow. Mark chapter 2, Jesus is teaching a massive crowd. And right in the middle of this lesson, all of a sudden rocks, stones, mud, different things are falling on Jesus' head, right? He's talking to this crowd, right? Teaching everybody. And he looks up, and there's a man coming through a hole in the ceiling, right? I'd have been angry, right? I worked very hard on this sermon, all right? Let me get it out, right? I'd have called the police. Right? There's somebody breaking into my house, right, from the ceiling. But what does Jesus do? He stops everything. And he says, your sins are forgiven, and he heals the man. Jesus is moved with compassion, and it draws him to action. You could argue all day long that God works through divine interruptions. That's one of his favorite ways to do something, and I believe we often miss those interruptions because we're too busy doing our own thing, our own schedule, our own time, our own idea of what we think we need to do. And there are times at work where I know you should have talked to that coworker longer, but you didn't want to mix Jesus and work together, right? And there are times, man, where you drove by that single mom on the side of the road that needs to change her flat tire, but you were busy, didn't want to get written up at work, you just kept moving, right? And there are times, man, when you pull up and there's that homeless guy staring at you in your window and you don't have a whole lot of money and you don't have much to give him, right? And you're not about to throw away your money to somebody who's just going to buy beer anyways, so why would I give it up? I don't know, man. I don't know what it is for you. That was sarcasm. I don't know. I think we're all in a very different place. We all struggle with very different things. But I do know that we need to be interrupted more. I do know that we need to be open to letting God interrupt us more and get uncomfortable and do things that we try to rationalize in our head that we shouldn't be doing. Right? What could God do in the lives of this church and the people in this church if we would just allow him to have these divine interruptions in our lives? What would happen, man? What would that life look like? What if God had his way and you just said, you know what, God, man, I'm just here for you. And whatever you have for me, I know that I got this, and this plan today, and it's going to be a busy day, and I have a lot of things to do, but God, whatever you have for me, I will stop it. If you put somebody in my direction, if there's something somewhere that you need me to do, somebody you need me to talk to, God, my day is open to you for your divine interruptions. What if we got there? What does a life like that look like? How amazing could that be? That's a life I want to live. So, compassion interrupts. And B, compassion costs. The second thing is compassion costs. You know, Jesus told a compelling story about a good Samaritan, right? We all know the Samaritan story most likely. There was a Samaritans and Jews, they didn't like each other, right? Racially, there was tension. The gods they worshipped, all kinds of stuff. They did not like each other. And for the Samaritan man to help out a Jewish man, this was not normal, but he stops and he helps out this Jewish man who's on the side of the road and he's bleeding, he's hurting. And these men, they should hate each other, they shouldn't be helping each other, they should just probably walk on by each other, right? Like that was the kind of the cultural norm back then. And covered in blood, the Samaritan man stops for this Jewish man and he bandages him up and gets him in good order, like so he'll at least stop bleeding, and he gets him up on the donkey, right? And he's got this guy bleeding all over his donkey, right? This guy he shouldn't even like in the first place. And he gets on the donkey with them, and they take off, and they go to this local hotel where it says that this Samaritan man, it says he put up 2 days' wages. 2 days' wages. Now right now everybody's going, I want you to think about this for a second. What do you make in 2 days? That's probably somewhere between $200 and $400, right? For a man he doesn't know that he should hate, everybody should tell him, you don't have to do that, right? You guys don't like each other, right? This is okay. You're allowed to not like him, not be nice to him, and not, right? But he puts up this amount of money and says, can this man stay and heal up in your hotel? Right? Here's this money. I don't know this man. I'm not even supposed to like this man. But I stopped for him. I put his bloody body on my donkey and I brought him to a hotel where I gave so much money that I couldn't afford to put out of my own pocket. But he was in need, so I had compassion and I did it anyways. Whoa. In our culture in 2019, all we want is drive-by compassion. At least until we need the compassion. All we want is to do what's easier for us. What's easiest for us while still showing some sort of love. So we'll click and we'll like and we'll retweet and we'll share and we'll do whatever it is to show some sort of love without ever loving. It's so easy to do. But the truth is, compassion usually costs us something. Yes. Compassion costs something. It's not just an acknowledgement. Clicking is clean, but compassion is messy. Clicking is clean, but compassion is messy. And for some of you, man, you're going to take this and you're going to run with it, right? You're going to say, man, I'm going to go get involved more. I'm going to do more. I'm going to have some compassion. I'm going to go mentor in inner city youth, right? I'm going to go mentor this little boy, this little girl. I'm going to go be a life-changing person in their life. And hopefully someday maybe they'll come to church with me and hopefully their lives are going to get turned around and all this stuff's they'll be a successful member of society. And right, all these great things are going to come from it. But all of a sudden you're in it and 6 months, 3 months in, and you're going, this isn't what I thought it was. This is messy. There's not much change. I don't know if these moments are even worth it. I'm not sure anything is happening from this. What's the point? Can I encourage you? Keep going. Keep going. Compassion is messy. This isn't drive-by compassion. We are grinding it out with each other, right? Like we're going to war, man. This is messy. For some of you, man, one day you're going to foster. You're going to take kids in. Some of them, they're going to be rough around the edges, some maybe not, but you're going to take those kids and you're going to love them to death. And you're going to do everything you can to pour into them and give them all the love that you could possibly give them while you have them in your care. And it's going to be difficult. You're going to serve them like crazy. And eventually you're going to lose them. The state's going to take them back. Their family's going to want them back. Something's going to happen. You're going to lose those kids and it's going to hurt. It's going to be messy. And you're going to wonder if you can do it again. But can I tell you, compassion is messy. Compassion is messy. Compassion interrupts, it costs, and C, compassion changes lives. Compassion changes lives. Everywhere Jesus went, when he was moved with compassion, he always changed a life. He always changed a life. Everywhere he went, all the time, this was the response of Jesus every single day. Whenever he had a chance to change a life, even when it was inconvenient, even when he was on the way to something far more important that he had to get done, he always changed a life. He always chose compassion. And I don't know about you, man, but I want that to be my story. Man, wouldn't that be the most beautiful thing to be on your gravestone? He always chose compassion. She always chose compassion. Whoa. I'm going to tell a quick story, and I'm going to pray us out, but recently I spent some time with an older gentleman, and I'm going to call him Tom just for the sake of a little bit of confidentiality. And I was spending some time with this guy, Tom. We're sitting out by a campfire talking. We're kind of like, it's sort of like this bonding moment. We're talking. We're kind of telling stories. And he had just been telling me kind of story after story, and I'm listening. And we kind of had this time where I'm just listening to him, just listening to his life. And I don't remember how it came up, but all of a sudden Tom, he starts telling me about this 12-year-old boy named Henry. He knew this little boy years ago, and apparently Tom used to basically teach in, not teach, I don't know what you want to call it, basically he would mentor in Boy Scouts, right? In Boy Scouts. And he had this young boy, Henry, in his Boy Scouts class, who was about 12 years old, and apparently Henry didn't have a father in his life. There was nobody there for him, right? He just him and his mom, and he was a little bit of a troubled young kid. He was hurting. And Tom said, man, I found out he didn't have a father in his life, and so I thought, man, well, at least maybe I could take him fishing sometime. I'll show him at least a little bit of attention, like he could probably use some male attention in his life. So I took him fishing, and we would do some stuff together, and I didn't really think much of it until one day, Henry came out of nowhere, and he pressed his shoulder, his head against my shoulder, And in that moment, man, Henry said to me, I've never had a dad, but you're kind of like a dad to me. And I was sitting there, and I'm listening to him say all this stuff. We're sitting by the fire, and I'm kind of stunned because at the time, we were just telling stories. It was very normal, but it got emotional and heavy really fast. But what was amazing to me is I was watching this man. He's about 84 years old now. And I'm watching this guy. He's lived a really good life, a really long life, happy life. And I said, Tom, man, when did this happen? Like, how long ago was that? And he said, man, it had to be at least, 50 years ago or so. And I realized in that moment that 50 years ago or so, God didn't just change one life. He changed 2 lives that day. He changed 2 lives that day. Because when you get outside of yourself, God will change lives. He will change lives and people around you. And oftentimes, the life He changes most is yours. Compassion is to ache from the inside for someone else. But our society, it cares less than it's ever cared before. So as the Church of Jesus Christ, we will choose to care. We're going to choose to care. Amen? Amen. Because we care, we will also act. Because compassion always requires action. Amen. Thank you. Let's pray. Father, God, I pray that you would slow us down. God, I pray that you would slow us down, that our eyes would see things that we're missing. Lord, it is so easy to get caught up in our schedules, in our 9 to 5s, our 10 to 6, whatever it may be. God, we get caught up in these schedules, and Lord, we just go on the move all the time, all the time, all the time. And it's so easy to just miss the people that you're putting in our tracks. And it's so easy to hear of another hurting situation and do nothing about it. It's so easy to just hear thing after thing and see hurt after hurt, pain after pain, and to just ignore it because we are becoming so desensitized to it. But God, I pray that you would give that sensitivity back to us. God, that we would feel your heart. Lord, that when people are suffering, when people are hurting, God, I pray that you use this church to go after those people, to help those people, to love on those people in any and every way that we can. Lord, we give you permission to use us today. In Jesus' name, amen. Love you guys. See you next week. See you at Wallingford Saturday.